Debbyites. I'm here with Amanda Spears, Marcus Dixon, and Ralph Garban, and we're here to talk about the supporting actors and actresses in a drama series. It's the races that we actually really, really care about. We don't get to talk about enough. So we thought we'd get together and do that. Amanda, I'm going to go to you first. Can you remind us who was nominated last year on the actress side?
Sure. On the actress side, Uzo Aduba won for Orange is the New Black. Christine Baranski was nominated for The Good Wife. Joanne Froggatt was nominated for Downton Abbey. Then we had Lena Headey and Emilia Clarke, both nominated for Game of Thrones. And Christina Hendricks, is not eligible again, but she was nominated for Mad Men.
Right. So that tells me that there's pretty much, if they all return, there's really only one spot. So is that where you sit at the moment?
Me? Well, I think that we're probably going to see Maggie Smith take that spot with Downton Abbey's last season. Yeah. That's at least the safe bet.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
I'm kind of going crazy right now in my predictions. I have Maggie Smith coming back instead of Joanne Froggatt. I actually have Margot Martindale getting in for The Good Wife. And I have Constance Zimmer getting in for Unreal. And the other three are Baranski, Aduba, and Headey. So I don't have Emilia Clarke coming back or Joanne Froggatt. I could be way off base.
I thought you thought Emilia Clarke was going to win. Or
I think Matt did. He was really,
okay.
Yeah, he loved that Fire episode.
He does love Emilia Clarke, as do I. Ralph, what about you?
This one's hard. I'm hoping, and not because it's they're just chock full of awesome contenders, but because they just like the same so much that I feel like they'll just recheck everything they did last year. But then you have like Marcus said, you have Constance Zimmer that deserves the nomination in there. You've got Ray Seahorn from Better Call Saul that if they actually watch the show should be a shoo-in in there, and she could potentially win with the episode she would submit. But I think Amanda's right. I think they'll probably go with the same and just add Maggie Smith since they took her out last year and since it's the final season, and that's the fear that I have. I'm hoping they'll do the 2% rule like they did for the comedy supporting actress, and we'll see 9 nominees or something like that just because there's so many deserving people on here. But yeah. That's what I got so far is I'm going with a safe bet.
It sounds like same. But, I want to ask a question about Orange is the New Black because there's no show on television or on our computers that has as many amazing and eligible actresses on the supporting side than this show. And Uzo Aduba is, for me, just a star, and she'd be nominated every year. I love her so much. But why aren't any of the others really in contention here? Is it just because it's just too difficult to break through, Ralph? What do you think?
That's a damn good question. Well, I mean, we did see the first year when they were in comedy from there. 3 were in guest, and then 2 were in supporting. I was kind of surprised that, they let go of Red Reznikov herself so quickly.
That was crazy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one nomination, her first one after being 40 years in the business, and then they move over to drama, and all of a sudden they drop her. And I get that. Uzo is completely popular. I have nothing against Uzo's wins, and I hope she wins all the time. But it was just surprising to me that they, instead of moving over the supporting actress in a comedy they had that one year over to supporting actress in a drama, they brought their guest actress in a comedy winner up to supporting actress in a drama, and then she won. And I guess just because her role is just so much louder and heavier, and everybody else on the show has equal screen time. I mean, there's, Laverne Cox didn't get back in. Natasha Lyonne didn't get back in. There are a lot of really big names, and I don't know. It's hard to figure out why, but probably like you said, there's just so much variety in there.
I think what's hurting them is the fact that 1, they moved to drama, but 2, that first year they were on the comedy side, but also the guest acting rules have changed. So unfortunately, most of them appear in all the episodes, which moves them out of which makes them ineligible. They have to appear in less than 50% and be listed as a guest actor.
It's too crowded. The supportings are just too crowded.
And
There's too
that's
many
why,
of them, and unfortunately, Uzo is the known quantity, and she's the one that kind of was the breakout of the show.
Even
and
Lorraine Toussaint couldn't get in last year, and
yeah,
she should have won. I think she did get a Gold Derby nomination, if I
that's
I
remember.
think she won.
Yeah, she won the Critics Award.
She
yeah,
deserved everything.
could have been in there. And that's why.
Speaking of,
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, speaking of Gold Derby TV awards, you can submit your ballots now for another week or so.
Yeah,
And I'm going through some of them. There's a lot of good um, Emmy opposite ballots coming in. In other words,
good.
things that the Emmys would never nominate, like Melissa McBride from Walking Dead. Come on, like how great is that?
Yeah.
Maisie Williams and Sophie Turner. Like I love these choices, but you know the Emmys probably won't do that.
Yeah, I like it when the Gold Derby Awards are as different to the Emmys as possible, just so that we can stand apart. But quickly back to Orange is the New Black. Natasha Lyonne and Mary Steenburgen, I think, are the only two in guest, and the rest of them are in supporting. I could be wrong. There's probably a couple of extras, but people like Danielle Brooks and Samira Wiley and yeah, I think they should be in the discussion, but they're kind of not because this category is so stacked, and it looks like
Yeah,
we're going to
and
have. Go ahead, yeah.
Adrian Moore, I think, deserves a shout out for. I think believe it was the third season, which they're eligible for, where she converted. She had that awesome storyline where she converted to Judaism, and it was, I mean, it was comedy. It was hilarious, but she's just so good. And in other like, misrepresent or underrepresented talent on the show, Yael Stone has been great
Yeah.
every season, and she's been ignored. We've done Gold Derby hangouts with her. I mean,
She's not even on the ballot.
there's just so well. I mean, last season I could see why. This season I think she should be. Like, season 4 has some amazing performances. If you guys haven't seen them, there's some great ones in there. I think Uzo has it on lock though. If you look at episode 11, she's got next year on lock. It's not even a competition. But there's just so many. There's so many good performances on there that it sucks that they. But also even with that. There's only one person they have in lead, Taylor Schilling, and they didn't even bring Taylor Schilling over to the drama actress side, nor are they even. I mean, she's so low in her odds. It's like they're not even paying attention to her. So I don't know if maybe it is just an Orange is the New Black thing altogether. That it's just Uzo and the show.
Well, it's not a classy show. I mean, this is taking place in a women's prison, and Tom O'Neill always likes to talk about their being snobs, so that might be a little bit a part of it. It did take them a long time to catch on to Breaking Bad because they're making meth in the desert, so it just might be a women's prison setting isn't really their thing.
So I want to put this question to you guys before we all move on to the actors, and that is this: if this does not become a same, and we get a few surprises, then there are some really interesting names there. We've already mentioned Constance Zimmer. She's actually running third at the moment in our predictions odds, which is really impressive for her, and I hope to see her there. But we also have people like Regina King in The Leftovers. Now, that show hasn't really been on the radar. It could be this second season, which is really much improved. And if anyone's going to get a nomination, it would be someone like her, who is a known quantity. And people like Maura Tierney and Miranda Otto, Maggie Siff, Linda Cardellini, and Dowd Rhea-Seaborn, who we've mentioned. So there's a few really interesting names there. Maybe Edie Falco from Horace and Pete. Anyone else have any particular name that they could actually have?
I would love to see Anna Dowd nominated, but I really doubt that's going to happen. If it did, for The Leftovers, I would be jumping up and down because she is incredible on that show, and she probably has a good enough episode that she could enter into the conversation as far as winning.
This Horace and Pete thing is very, it's a mystery. We don't know if they're going to go crazy for this or not. I mean, Jessica Lange could get in. Edie Falco could get in. I just don't know if they're watching. I know they got the DVDs, but they got a million DVDs, so I don't know.
Any further names that we haven't mentioned? Maybe I don't know. Like it's just Melissa McBride we've mentioned. She's running 17th in our odds, so she's not completely off the radar. And then it just goes on and on. There's a lot of names here, but they seem to be the major contenders. I can't imagine anyone else breaking in at this point. So let's move on to the actors. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this ballot has the most for acting has the most contenders across the board. Supporting actor in a drama, it's like something like 400 people. to get nominated in this category is a really big deal because you need to kind of stand out on this huge ballot. And Ralph, given that you have some experience in voting, I don't think you voted in this particular category. I'm going to go to you first. Who is the most likely to be nominated in this category?
Most likely,
Yeah.
Jim Carter.
100%. That's so funny.
No.
It's so true.
This year, next year, every year.
Every year.
Even
forever.
after the show's over, he'll still be getting it.
He will still get nominated.
Yes.
We should probably go.
Do you want the nominees from last year?
Let's bring that up. Go for it.
Okay, so we have Peter Dinklage, who won last year. Good thing Charles isn't here, because he would. Jim Carter, Ben Mendelsohn for Bloodline, Jonathan Banks from Better Call Saul, Michael Kelly for House of Cards, and Alan Cumming for The Good Wife. And all of them are eligible this year.
Yeah, so it could be same again, right?
Oh, I hope it's not same. I mean, all those 6 guys are fantastic, but what about Michael McKean from Better Call Saul? He needs to get in.
Yeah.
Kit Harington, it was his season on Game of Thrones. He needs to get in.
We haven't even mentioned the possible winner could be, and that's Christian Slater. I think he definitely probably has bumped Mendelsohn out of there.
Yeah, is that the most likely person to be bumped out, Ben Mendelsohn?
Maybe Michael Kelly.
Yeah.
Did he have a strong season? I don't know if he did. He had a much stronger season before, and that's why he was nominated. And he's great on House of Cards, but he took a bit of a backseat to some of the other players, and so he could get bumped out. That's complete. And you know what? Let's be honest. Peter Dinklage, as much as we love him, he's a multi-Emmy winner now. Did he necessarily have a great season? Probably not, compared to Kit Harington. So he'll get nominated regardless. He's just like Jim Carter. But should we be keeping our eye out for Peter Dinklage maybe being snubbed?
No.
It's possible. Jim Parsons got snubbed last year.
Yeah, but he didn't have a great season in season 2, Peter Dinklage, and he still was able to get in.
Yeah.
So
I don't think he had a great season last season, and he still managed to win. Yeah. His episode wasn't anything to be completely thrilled about, and he still won. So I think that kind of says something to the staying power of Peter Dinklage there.
Yeah, he's just so known. When you think about Game of Thrones, you generally think about him and a couple of the others, and he's really lucky that he has that extra added visibility. People know who he is, so he's probably in.
Who do you guys think
Jonathan Banks could be somebody that may not make it back in. I have him out in place of Michael McKean because I think if people actually watched Better Call Saul for season 2, his performance, it's just like that year, and they've done it before. Like look at Game of Thrones when that first year they had Emilia Clarke and then they brought Lena Headey. They didn't nominate them both at the same time both of those years. Not until the third year did they then bring both of them into the same category. I should say the fourth year. So I think it could be something like that where, Michael McKean had he was just such a powerhouse through the season that they could bring him in position of a Jonathan Banks. Fingers crossed.
Okay, that's a good call.
Who do you think could win? Do we all think if Peter Dinklage is nominated that he'll win again because of the popular ballot?
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to depend on the 6th in this category because Christian Slater is still technically considered a movie star.
Yeah.
He won the Globe. He's won the Critics' Choice. He might be that kind of person who can sneak in on the first season and win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, and not only that, but he's so well liked in the industry, and he's worked with so many of these people, and he's been in it for such a long time that they kind of love that stuff. So I think if he gets in, which I hope he does because he deserves to, I'm not sure Peter Dinklage is going to repeat because Christian Slater's there.
Yeah, this is Christian Slater's chance to get that Emmy because Mr. Robot will not always be the hot new thing, and so he will likely be nominated, and then I expect him to win this one. I don't think it's going to be very difficult for him to do so.
And we don't know if Kit Harington sneaks in. Yeah. He might be popular enough because the season did kind of reveal something at the end that was very significant about his character. I'm just not going to say it. You can look it up online. but that might be enough to keep him because he was the story of the season.
Yeah, he needs to be nominated. He was the story of the previous seasons and wasn't, and it's always annoyed me. I think he's one of the greatest things about this show, and if people love it that much, then he needs to be nominated too. So fingers crossed for him. And also, I think we should keep our eyes out for Alan Cumming, because The Good Wife has proved in the past that the actors love this show and they love the actors on it. And he was probably one of the strongest actors on the last season of The Good Wife, and has been nominated.
Behind Margulies, he was just. He was almost the lead actor, which is weird. He had such an increased storyline. It's almost like after his nomination last year, the writers were like, "Oh yeah, we forgot Alan Cumming's on our show. Let's give him a lot of material this year."
Yeah.
You know who else we're kind of forgetting, speaking of forgetting, is back to what Marcus said in the supporting actress race. This Horace and Pete thing, you have Alan Alda in there, who is on the ballot alphabetically A up there. Either way you go, he is a legend with the Emmys. I mean, he has like 1 billion of them. I would not discount Alan Alda sneaking in here and taking anybody's spot. I know he's way down in our predictions list, but I think that's a mistake. So that's also another scary one. 2% rule.
Even if the show doesn't do well, I could still see Alan Alda kind of sneaking in there because he's Alan Alda.
Yeah,
on that kind of name check.
He's really good in Horace and Pete. That's spot on. That's a very good call. In fact, I think most of us who are smart enough should probably be putting him in. I can't see how he's not going to get nominated. Yeah. You can see Horace and Pete. He's dynamite in that. He plays a really vile, racist, old, fogey kind of character, and he's excellent. Other names that we should be considering, if there's going to be any surprises, are people like Ray Romano. Even though Vinyl has just died, literally, and also just in terms of the way the
Why didn't they wait to cancel that until after the voting? It's like they canceled it right in the middle of the voting. So if you were a Vinyl fan, you're like, well, there's no reason I'm going to vote for it now.
They canceled it right as voting began. That's kind of ridiculous.
So who else? Mandy Patinkin, Bo Bridges, who has won an Emmy in the past for Masters of Sex, is now in the supporting actor category, and he has been nominated 5,752 times.
Yeah,
so
he didn't win for Masters though, but we predicted that he would. So we had egg on our face last year.
We have a lot of egg on our faces. People like Rufus Sewell in The Man in the High Castle. If Amazon can get that show front and center, then he's the most likely contender. Same with Tobias Menzies from Outlander. If anyone from that show, apart from Katrina Balf's going to get nominated, it's probably going to be him.
He's got a good enough episode to win. So.
Sure he does, and he's quite popular. He was in like every single British-American co-production last year too. He was in Game of Thrones, Outlander. What else? He's in everything.
Catastrophe. He was in Catastrophe.
Yeah, that's right. So that's interesting. And then I don't know. Are we forgetting anyone? Pedro Pascal from Narcos, perhaps. I don't know.
Chris Maloney. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Chris Maloney from Underground. John Voight. He got in 2 years ago for Ray Donovan. He could come back.
Yeah.
Joshua Jackson from The Affair.
And he's been on television for a long time, so that one wouldn't really surprise me if someone like Joshua Jackson had built up enough goodwill to kind of get a career nomination.
There's just so many possible contenders. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And they're just going to go with the same 6 from last year. You just watch.
Joel Kinnaman from House of Cards. But like House of Cards has got such a strong cast. If anyone, maybe if Michael Kelly goes out, could Joel Kinnaman take his place? Probably not, but he was really good in that last season of the show. So this category, for me, is always the one that I watch the closest because there's just so many great contenders. And let's hope we don't see all the same people from last year, but it's looking likely. Any final thoughts, guys?
I've always loved this category because over the past 20 years, it's never ever repeated for winners. And then all of a sudden, Aaron Paul won 3, and now Dinklage has won 2. So it's getting to be one of those stale categories that we don't like. But for 15 years though, it was all new people. That's why I love this category. Maybe that's why you were partial to it too.
Yeah, it's always fascinating just to see new faces, and this category does throw them up, so that's pretty.
And it did prove last year with Michael Kelly, because he wasn't nominated in the past, that they are at least paying enough attention to certain shows.
Yeah, that's why I think Kit's in for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I really hope so. All right, thank you everybody for your opinions. We'll see what happens in a few weeks' time.